Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm a Vedic astrologer of some 35 years experience. I'm talking to you this week and every week pretty much about what's happening astrologically in the sky and how it may manifest on the earth. The the main thing I'd like to talk about this week is I'm going to give a general forecast. I'm going to focus a little bit on the February 17th um, eclipse. That'll be at 9:56 a.m. UTC. So I'm picking Greenwich, England as the location chart. Also, before I go any further, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share the video with your friends or with people who you might think are who you think would be interested in this video. I'm going to try to make this shorter than my videos usually are because I realize it's a bit of a task to stay with a video for over an hour, and the last one was over an hour and a half. So that's really not fair to you guys. Uh, so I'm going to try to make them more succinct, more to the point. So also, if you would like to study Vedic astrology with me or get a reading, contact me at 508 525 0001, and or you can email me at garygomesg@gmail.com. You can also message me in the response section if you're viewing this on YouTube. But you can text me at 508 525 0001. You'll forgive me if my voice is a little raspy this week. It was raspy last week. I have a cold I still haven't quite gotten over, and this weather up here in New England has been a little bit taxing on me, if I'm honest with you. So a little more shoveling than I'm used to, a little more, and I'm a little older than I've been before this happened. It's been about, I say about 4 years since I've had to do 4 to 5 years since I've had to do a serious shovel. So uh, I feel it. All right. So enough about me, but let me get on to this. And let me share, first of all, let me share the eclipse chart for you. So this is eclipses I find, and this may be a little bit um, of a deviance from what some astrologers uh, believe. I don't know. I haven't surveyed them all, to be honest with you. But I find we feel the energy of an eclipse coming a little bit before the event. So eclipses are essentially, so this is going to be a partial solar eclipse. So that's why we've had all this, partially is why we've had all this anxiety about um, Iran, excuse me, and and fears of war and fears of and all this accusatory stuff going back and forth about who is involved with Epstein. Um, I think to a very large extent, um, what's coming out is the number of people that Epstein had contact with was truly monumental. There's hardly anybody who wasn't involved or connected with him in some way or through some other person. So we may have the equivalent of the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Um, and for those of you who don't remember that, a person there was a mind idea or a mind technique that came up and in which you could figure out how many degrees you are separated from the actor Kevin Bacon. And I have a funny feeling that just based upon, so you can do this with any individual, like, God, people can be 6 degrees isolated from, so essentially, you know someone who knows 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 Kevin Bacon. And so this seems to be pretty much the same pattern that seems to be developing over the Epstein tape, over the Epstein emails. So you have people as diverse as Noam Chomsky, who's uh, a liberal, a very liberal thinker, showing up in the same list with people like Elon Musk and people like um, oh gosh, I'm just trying to think of a couple of people that I can mention without getting into serious trouble. Um, or with almost any politician. There are some politicians who don't show up directly on that list, but some politician probably knows another person who's connected with Epstein in some way, shape, or form. And I think that this is going to be a fascinating game of trying to limit of trying to split um, close associates from people who were acquaintances of close associates from people who were acquaintances of close associates. So the email list is perhaps maybe the most direct link because there's a mention or some kind of a social contact connected with the email, and we still don't have all the files out. So, I mean, this is probably going to be a slow, steady unfold. And but again, it's not that. Um, so I'm not trying to diminish a person who's mentioned in the emails, but people who are mentioned in the emails, some are just people who are mentioned in the emails. There's no necessarily direct relationship with them. And you'll also have people coming out with allegations about people who are mentioned in the saying they did this or that incorrectly. So I think that that's a fascinating thing. It's something I haven't, but there will be more revelations as we draw nearer to the eclipse. That was the point that I was trying to get to. So the eclipse over here is it occurs in Aquarius. It's a partial eclipse. It's really not covering a great deal um, te of territory. And I can maybe share a screen with you. I'm gonna see if I can share another screen with you. Uh, share. Let's see if I can get it. Because I pull up an eclipse map. So basically, if you look down at the map, towards, if you can see the map, the eclipse path is going to be going through South Africa, um, up through um, Zambia, and a lot of South African countries and Madagascar, and also right down at the tip of Chile and Argentina. So it's not really going to be involved with a lot of, um, it's going to be involved with those countries, or it's going to be partially visible in those companies. Uh, but it's really not visible, and the visible parts of the eclipse tend to be where the eclipse effects tend to hit most. So there will probably be scandals and revelations coming out of South Africa and uh, and Zimbabwe and 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 Zambia and that region of South Africa. Maybe it'll touch upon Somalia because it is rather close to Somalia. And we do have all those allegations of fraud connected with the Minnesota incidents. So I hope you saw that screen. I apologize if you didn't. So I'm going to close down that screen, and I'm going to put the eclipse map up again. So let me try this again. Okay, so this is the eclipse chart. So it happens when the eclipse actually is going to happen on February 17th, 9:56 in the morning, but that's again, that'll be roughly 4 a.m., 4 to 5 a.m. in the morning here on the East Coast of the United States. And um, maybe even a little bit earlier, if I'm honest. And so we have in Aries rising, it'll start things happening. And part of the first house is exalted, so a lot of people are going to be, and as a matter of fact, Mars is close to its maximum degree of exaltation, so it's about as powerful as it gets. It's like within 2 degrees of its most powerful position in the chart. Now, the interesting thing I find is that when Mars is exalted, it doesn't necessarily lead to more wars. Sometimes it leads to peaceful resolution, or the threat of a war is enough to stop a war from breaking out. Doesn't always happen that way. It depends on how much panic is involved. And eclipses are basically Rahu and Ketu are responsible for panic and accidents. So Ketu is involved with accidents, uh, and Rahu is involved with panic. But I think one of the most fascinating things about this pattern is we have finally Mercury separating from Mars in this eclipse. And you can see a lot of the, what I would call the erroneous linkages being mentioned by people or on the part of people connected uh, with allegations regarding the Epstein files, and also um, in politics in general. They're starting to separate again. So the media is starting to get more skeptical of certain things that they're broadcasting. And also, you'll probably have some revelations come out about what ICE is doing um, in Minnesota, what ICE is doing around the country, and but it won't be colored because the Mars-Mercury conjunction is not active. Now, again, keep something in mind. You have a Rahu-Moon conjunction, you have a Rahu-Sun conjunction. This is also what I would call a deceptive combination. And the reason I'm saying that is because Rahu essentially doesn't like the sun, it doesn't like the glare of truth. Eclipses sometimes obscure the sun or obscure righteousness. But actually, I think what this is going to do is it's going to actually work to expose underhanded people or devious people or people who are conspiring against people, because secrets always come out during an eclipse. Uh, so, so I think that attempts to hide things tend not to do very well when there's an eclipse present. And also, one of the other things I think you're going to see is more political um, violence across the world. Uh, and again, I had a conversation with Narashima Rao online. I don't think the United States is, well, let me put it this way. In the situation of Iran, let me pull up Iran's chart. Iran just shot some missiles um, at a U.S. base in in Qatar. So I don't think you're going to see that go them lack a response. The weird thing about this combination is they did it at a time when, oh God, what goofs. When the country was in a Jupiter, Venus, Saturn subperiod. So they will suffer for that. So there will probably be some retaliation from the United States. Um, probably before, um, probably relatively shortly. I would tend to say by 10th from this chart. But again, I'm hoping the United States doesn't retaliate. I'm hoping the United States actually figures out a way to resolve this peacefully, but it looks unlikely. So that combination in Leo sign with K2 passing through Leo may have hastened um, Iran's decline, which I'm still seeing or the Iranian government's decline, which I'm still seeing happening this year. So let's go back to the United States. So that's what I'm going to say about Iran this year uh, from this chart. The other thing is we have the eclipse chart right now is, so this is a couple of weeks in advance, but again, like I said, the events lead up to an eclipse. An eclipse doesn't all of a sudden cause them. It reflects it affects what's been building up and then gets released. The thing I don't like about this eclipse is there are several planets in conjunction with Rahu. Um, Not all of them. So, I mean, that's a good thing. But Jupiter does aspect the eclipse, and the eclipse is between two malefic planets. So, what does that mean in plain English? Well, Jupiter will expand the effects of the eclipse, even though it's a relatively mild one. So Jupiter, whatever Jupiter looks at, grows. Mars and Saturn will also make it feel kind of miserable, uh, and everybody feel kind of anxious because there'll be war in the background and there'll be also be dire consequences in the foreground. So I'm just imagining that although I don't think this will necessarily trigger a war, this eclipse will trigger a war. You'll have warlike actions taking place over the next couple of weeks. So, um, so we'll have to see what happens. The other good thing, though, is I think that uh, what we've seen happening over the past couple of weeks is there have been um, so I don't think you're going to see ice all of a sudden pull out of. So let's get back to ice for a second. I don't think you're going to see ice pull back from its involvement in Minnesota. I don't think you're going to see ice um, move away from its central mission. However, I do think you'll find them approaching it more um, intelligently and less and in a less reactive stance. So um, the person who's in charge now, Tom Homan, was actually responsible for a great many of the traditions that happened when Barack Obama was in office. And I can even remember not far from where our store is, Crystal Expectations, 854 Brock Avenue, New Bedford, Mass. 508-990-7898. Uh, our store was up the street, and There was a factory down the street from ours, from where our store is, and there was a raid in very cold weather. And you had people essentially, and like I said, this was during the Barack Obama years. And there were people essentially diving out of, immigrant workers diving out of second story windows into the river, to get away from ICE officers. So I, so again, the raids were more tactical, less. There were surprises. Let's put it that way. They were less um, directly confrontational. So I think you'll see a change in strategy, especially over the next couple of weeks. But I don't think you're going to see them leave Minnesota anytime soon. Um, and so that is going to continue to go on. That's not going to stop anytime soon. Uh, I think we're for about a year of that, and obviously that's going to cause some problems and some action and even some more deaths on both sides, if I'm honest about it. But I think you're going to see, at least in the immediate future, more protests. And like I said, this is consistent with what I said. Around February through March, you're going to see the protests actually amp up a great deal. And the other thing that I'm looking at is, if we're looking at this chart, that Mars and Saturn hemming in is what's called the Papakatara Yoga in Vedic astrology. That will actually make this eclipse seem a little bit worse than it actually is. So again, scandal, definitely. Scandal connected with government, Rahu, Sun, Moon. Yeah, you betcha. And it'll extend, the scandals will extend not just from national governments, but to local governments as well. Um, and I had made a comment to somebody just about um, maybe yesterday that wh whenever there's a large flow of cash that comes from the government, you'll see an increase in uh, misallocation, if I can use that term. So essentially, redirecting money, and we know the Defense Department can't account for a large portion of its money, or maybe they can account for it, but they don't want to account for it. And we also know that whenever new domestic programs emerge, and I've been involved with a few of them at, at a local and state level in terms of administration, there's always the possibility that people will try to misappropriate funds or spend funds inappropriately. And so, and I think that this is a risk you have. So again, does that mean that I think there should be no government spending on anything? No, no, that's not the case. But oversight, it just tends to be lacking in a lot of these cases. And or they don't have clear guidelines in place when they actually distribute the money. So some of these are accidental misallocations, some of them are deliberate, some of them are political misallocations. So a lot of that will be popping up over the next couple of months or so. Okay. Uh, and so that's going to cause a lot of problems. So this eclipse doesn't look to be super damaging. It is. I'll show you the US map for a second. Let's just see if I can change this. I want to keep the eclipse map there. So it's in the same sign as the US's moon. So this will be a lot of public image, a lot of public outcry during this eclipse, or in the months before and the months preceding it, or succeeding it, excuse me. And also, you'll see threats to governments around the world. I think you'll see um, more active rebellion in Africa and maybe in Argentina, maybe in some countries that are relatively placid in terms of international standards, like um, France. There's a Portuguese election I know coming up this week, and the Liberal Democrat, I think this the Social Democrat candidate is favored to win. Um, so we'll see what happens there. But I mean it's like by an overwhelming percentage. It's not close at all. But we're going to have to see what actually happens in those countries. But essentially, any country that has, so I can't go through all of them, unfortunately. But let me mark. Denmark has K2 really almost exactly on where Rahu is right now, and K2 and Rahu are essentially reverse positions in the map because Rahu is right here, and K2 is right here by transit. So there will be some upset or some realignment in the Danish government. Um, in UK, I just want to go quickly to UK. If, see, this wouldn't pause. Chart. Okay. So UK will not be as affected, although institutions will be affected. So what does that mean? Well, essentially, um, the UK has postponed elections for again, um, and I think after March 5th, you'll start to see the Labour government probably lose some power after March 5th. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be a violent act connected with it, but they'll definitely lose power. Uh, France, I do have France in here. France. France doesn't have any planets connected with the eclipse path, uh, but Jupiter is aligned with its moon. Saturn is aspecting its Mars, so you can expect to see some financial consequences for this. Rahu's in France's 12th house. So again, France is in a sort of a financial crisis right now. And let me just look at India, because I know a lot of people like to look at India. India, uh, it's in this Mars, Rahu subperiod. So these next few months are going to be fairly disruptive for India all the way through February 22nd of 2027. I'm expecting to see a lot of popular discontent in India between February 4th and April 2nd. and that'll continue really throughout really around July of 2026. You'll probably see it calming down in India, some financial stability returning, but I wouldn't be really surprised if we saw some major electoral shifts in India. So I'll look at that as their elections come closer. I know, I know they're not very far away. So let's go over here and let's go back to the. So we glanced at the eclipse. I'll probably cover it again next week. Um, and we'll have a chance to look at it in a little bit more detail. All right, so this is a now chart for this week. Um, Cancer is the rising sign as I speak right now. Um, One, two, three. K2 is in the second house. Stationary direct, which is, again, it's an invention. It's something that, so K2, Indian astrologers typically use what's called a mean node, and that is the average, the directions they think K2 should be taking. This was the true node where K2 has a chance, K2 and Rahu have a chance to go direct, are usually caused by they're mathematical calculations, and they can give a little bit more accuracy in terms of the eclipses, but basically they're a 20th century invention. They're not a traditional Indian astrology technique. But I still prefer them because we do have these periods where things seem to be going in one direction, and then all of a sudden they flip in the other direction. And that's what just happened over the past week, especially with Iran, especially with the Epstein files. Um, and, all of a sudden, a lot of the issues, and even Minneapolis, things like Minneapolis, even things like uh, Great Britain, we've had a lot of was it Nigel Farage from the UK was over testifying before Congress because he was concerned about there's a concern in the U.S. that certain NATO countries, are imposing limits on free speech, and that's Germany, England, UK, and France. I think several other countries are as well. Turkey has for years. That's not a new development for Turkey, but this is these are countries which have been known as liberal uh, democracies, in which free speech was encouraged and not suppressed. And so certain language. Now again, it's a personal point whether or not you think that um, that language should be suppressed or not. I tend to think it shouldn't be unless it's connected with something like a threat, but threats can be prosecuted. You can figure out who made a threat, go and say, okay, you violated another law. You threatened somebody's life. So so I think the idea that um, so censorship is is something we've gotten used to in the West to a certain extent because um, it satisfies the needs of some people to tell us how to think. Um, and I'm not saying that I would necessarily agree with every statement that was put out in terms of under the terms of freedom of speech, but I think it's a slippery slope. If you start suppressing some speech, then you're on a pathway towards suppressing all speech, and it creeps in slowly but surely. So that's just my personal bias. And we've seen it before. This isn't a new phenomenon. This isn't new either in under dictatorships or even under the West. So there were certain things that were um, deliberately being withheld from the U.S. citizenship during the Vietnam War, during World War II. Some were for national security purposes. Others were just so the United States wouldn't look bad. And I think if we start getting into the latter, so you suppress freedom of speech because you don't want your country to look bad. That tends to start to get into the slippery slope of just saying, well, I don't like this person. So let's say if a person can be technically thrown into jail for insulting a politician in Germany, that's not, to me, that's not a really good thing. Uh, Now, again, not threatening, insulting. Okay, so Jupiter's aspecting. So right now, given the current environment, Rahu is with Venus and Mercury. Mars is finally outside of the range of conjunction and definitely away from planetary war with Mars, but it is in the same constellation with Rahu and Venus. So there's a lot of, especially in the entertainment industry, there's a lot of publicity being sought right now, especially for political reasons. These are both in the United States' third house, which is connected with acting. Okay, and the Mercury Venus conjunction, but Rahu being there tends to make actors a little bit, um, I would say, less than trustworthy. Um, you know, um, I'm not in favor of censoring their speech by any stretch of the imagination, but just anything you hear from an actor or a politician right now, take with a grain of salt. Um, any of the performing arts, uh, we, and I include news in that, take with a grain of salt because they're going to want to be pumping up the salacious or the unsavory aspects of it. And also because Venus is involved, there's a sexual element to it as well. Um, Sun and Mars are together pretty close, but they're not. They're combust a little bit, but it's a fairly wide range. So that does make the government a little bit more easily excitable than normal. Mercury is still combust and Venus is still combust. So these are the very wide ranges. So combustion means a planet is interfered with by the rays of the sun. So it's essentially that will make a lot of judgments or pronouncements harsher than they need to be, or more judgmental than they need to be, and more authoritarian than they need to be. And that's true of not only of states, but also of citizens um, attacking their states. Saturn is in Pisces. That's, again, this is an interesting combination because the dogma starts to be Pisces is a sign of faith and freedom, but it's also a sign of belief. And so over the next couple of years, a lot of beliefs will be just um, made very, they'll be ossified, they'll be set in stone. It'll take a lot for a person to break away from a belief system. Jupiter aspecting Mercury, Rahu, and Venus, similar to the eclipse, does tend to make people um, more prone to gossip, more prone to speculate. Jupiter's aspecting the moon, which is not necessarily a bad thing, so people will be more inclined to write and communicate. So The next week, what we can expect to see to a certain extent is if we go through the chart piece by piece, a lot of anger in, especially in the United States, but also just in terms of um, of economic issues. The Sun and Mars in the second house in Capricorn tends to make it difficult for anybody to peaceably disagree, especially about financial matters. Venus, Mercury, and Rahu will make it everybody very, very scandal thrown. People will be upset over anything they're told or anything they believe to be true. Saturn, we're seeing increasingly rigid belief systems. This will continue for about another couple of years. And also, not as much interest in metaphysical pursuits or spiritual pursuits until we hit 2027. Okay. Um, Jupiter's in Gemini, so a lot of communication, a lot of talk, a lot of gab without a lot of substance. And Moon is in a lot of wisdom without any substance, I would say. And Moon is in Libra, so there will be attempts for people to get along. Although the Moon is in what's called the Kama Yoga, and that's when no planets are aspecting the Moon. Oh, I'm sorry, Jupiter is aspecting the Moon. I take it back. So that's not strict Kama Yoga. Um, so Kama dramas are when no planets are aspecting the Moon and the Moon is isolated. This is an isolated Moon, but at least the people are reserving judgment. The common people and also people who have financial um, gains and also in politics. They'll be less inclined to be very dogmatic. A lot of people are interested in trade right now. So I think this will be one of the issues that the eclipse triggers as well. So there'll be some violation of trade agreements. So let's get back to the actual chart and what it means to you over the next week. For Aries, Aries starts April 15th, goes to May 15th. We have Jupiter in the third, uh, and Moon in the seventh. So this can give new relationship partners or change in relationship dynamics, new business partners, and also some financial gains for those people. Career things look pretty good for this sign. There'll be a lot of extra tension at work, but there'll also be profit, but maybe a little bit overly optimistic. And again, this pattern of expenditure sticks for Aries for a while. Okay, so just keep in mind that even if you're doing okay, you'll still be spending money for a little while. For Taurus, Taurus starts on May 15th, goes to June 15th. And for Taurus, we have Jupiter's in the second house, good for financial gains. Saturn is in the 11th house. Uh, a lot of gesturing to old friends, a lot of attempts at reconciliation. Um, I think overall from the chart, uh, work-wise, things should actually be pretty good for Taurus because of this cluster in the 10th house. Um, K2's in the 4th house, can give some problems with children, can give some problems with family life, maybe some upset. Moon is in the 6th house, not a bad placement. It tends to give some barriers, though, in terms of achieving gains. Mars is in one, two, three, four, five, is in the 9th house along with Sun, so that indicates relatively good luck for the sign. So again, we've gone pretty much for the sign. So it's kind of a mixed month for Taurus, but overall more positive than negative, or mixed week, excuse me. For Gemini, Gemini has Jupiter in the first house. Gemini is June 15th to July 15th. Uh, we have Jupiter in the first house as Lord of the seventh and also Lord of the 10th. So there's a lot of career focus for this chart. Saturn is in the 10th house. Rahu, Venus, and Mercury are in the ninth house. So that should give some financial gain. But again, bosses will be tough or difficult to work with. And it'll also cause you to spend more effort than you really want to. But again, this is actually it does show signs of linking up, so things are linking up somewhat for Geminis. Moon is in the fifth house. That does indicate new romantic interest or even a blossoming of relationship life. We have a planets in the eighth house. Sun and Mars are in the eighth house. So not a good time for a permanent long-term connection like a marriage. Not even good for short-term link-ups. But Venus, this combination of Venus, Rahu, and Mercury in the ninth house gives problems with bosses, but also increased career status over the next few weeks. So this is not a bad chart for Gemini. It's just not really bad for relationships. Um, Cancer is July 15th through August 15th. We have Jupiter in the 12th house, which can be good for saving, but you will find yourself sort of not really cautious about spending money. Moon is in the fourth house, at least with this particular placement. Um, there'll be a lot of focus on home life and successful focus on home life. But Saturn's in is the Lord of the seventh house, is placed in the ninth house. So there should be some good luck to relationship partner, but relationship partner will seem to be a little bit mean or difficult to get along with. And the relationship partner may even be keeping some secrets from you. So this is not, Venus can indicate in the eighth house, can indicate, but it often doesn't, um, some adulterous activity, but I don't think that's what it is here. It's essentially these are two, when these two are together, these are financial planets. So there'll be some hidden expenditures for from Cancer's spouse. Saturn's in the ninth house. Ninth house has Jupiter in it. The Lord of the ninth is in the 12th. So overall, good luck, but you'll have to travel or have to really exert yourself to take advantage of it. And again, this sign should save as much as it possibly can, especially this month. For Leo, Leo has K2 in the first house, and the Leo period lasts from August 15th. So Cancer was July 15th through August 15th. Leo is August 15th through September 15th. And with K2 in the first house, it's sort of a special treatment. It is aspected by the Lord of the House of Gains, which is Venus, and the Lord of the House of Desires or Ambitions, and also expenditures, which is Mercury. Now, when this happens, there may be some advantages coming to a relationship partner or spouse, some fame or recognition. If you're already in a relationship, that's good for your relationship partner. Uh, and Mars, Sun and Mars are in the sixth house, can make this sign a little bit bellicose or a little bit quick to action. Saturn is in the eighth house, can indicate some opposition from people who are more traditional minded or more um, aligned with poor people, and Jupiter in the 12th, good for savings, as I said before. So there'll be hidden or persistent enemies for this sign for the next couple of years. And again, it's especially people who are, um, I don't want to say lazy, but they're more fixed in perspective. And so, this sign will not be good for sitting governments. This placement will not be good for sitting governments. So let's go on to Virgo. Virgo is um, Virgo's Lord is Mercury, and Mercury is placed in the sixth house with Venus and Rahu. So this and Virgo lasts from September 15th to October 15th. Thanks for reminding me. And if the Lord of the first house is in the sixth house, the person can often go on a bad diet or eat food, so eat bad food, so be careful what you eat. Um, Rahu is along with Mercury and Venus, so there can be a little bit of a danger of not necessarily intoxication, but like I said, just bad foods in general. Um, Mars and also developing bad habits. Mars and Sun are in the fifth house. Can be some arguments or flare-ups with children. And Saturn is in the ninth house. No, Saturn is not in the ninth house. Saturn's in the seventh house, excuse me. Sorry, folks. Saturn's in the seventh house. And essentially, this combination does tend to make it difficult for these people to change relationship partners' minds or change relationships. But it will put intense pressure on the relationship life. For so and Jupiter's in the 10th house, so good for career. K2's in the 12th house, so good for spiritual development. For Libra, Libra has starts from October 15th, goes through November 15th. I can say that word, November 15th. And there's a lot of focus on Libra's career in this chart. A lot of focus on gaining knowledge, but mainly to support career, because Jupiter's aspecting the first house. So this chart will gain that knowledge over the next few weeks, but definitely over the next week or so. There's going to be a lot of drive for that. Jupiter aspects two benevolent planets in the fifth house, which indicates you'll get favors from women and also favors from younger people, but also favors from people who are a little bit unorthodox or people from other countries. So that's not necessarily a bad combination for Libra rising because Libra is connected with trade. So that's his, so it's with assessing value. So essentially, this isn't a bad combination overall, but it does indicate the need for some um, contact with people from other countries or who are a little bit unusual or a little bit difficult to deal with. Sun and Mars are in the fourth house, so there can be some difficulties with relationship life. Relationship partner will seem to be a little bit demanding or difficult. Saturn's in the sixth house, not bad. This is indicates achievement of work goals and also achievement of desired goals, um, but through hard work. So this isn't a bad combination. Jupiter sort of blesses this chart. It hits the first house with the moon in it, and it hits the fifth house with Rahu, Mercury, and Venus in it. So it will tend to damp down. Uh, Rahu is more uh, difficult, possible to please traits. Let's move on to Scorpio. Scorpio has no planets in it. but the Lord of Scorpio, so Scorpio lasts from November 15th through December 15th. Thanks for reminding me. Um, Mars, the Lord of Scorpio is Mars. It's exalted in Capricorn, and it also has the Lord of the ninth house in the third house. So this can indicate great luck, especially through leaders and also especially through inner drive. This sign will be very aggressive this month. Venus, Mars, and Rahu. Home life will probably be a little bit disturbed though. Saturn's in the fifth house. Hard work will help you achieve your goals, as I've said many times before, but in other signs, but this is particularly true with this particular sign. Don't give up if you don't get immediate positive results. Jupiter's in the eighth house. That's very good for sudden unexpected gains of money. And K2's in the 10th house. Good for growth in career, but again, not a lot of professional recognition. Moon is in the 12th house. That's not necessarily a bad placement. It does give um, some loss to the sign, some financial problems to the sign, but basically, um, I think that this particular combination isn't bad because the moon is in a favorable sign, and it does encourage Scorpio to save money. But again, I would encourage you not to overindulge or not to get too lazy. That's one problem with the moon in the 12th house. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius goes from um, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Sorry, folks. Closed down completely. Oh, I really okay. So we're only going to go to the new chart. Chart. All right. So let me put the chart up on the screen again. Sorry, folks. Let's see. All right. So you should be seeing the chart on your screen again. So Sagittarius has um, Jupiter in the seventh house. The Lord of the first house is in the seventh. And that's good for home life and career. Although Mars in the second house will make this sign very argumentative, very aggressive. And Venus, Mercury, and Rahu will make it act a little bit too quick to spread gossip, too quick to um, focus on acting versus really doing something. Saturn is in the fourth house in this chart. Saturn aspects the first house. So sometimes this sign will feel like everything it's doing isn't working out well for it. But other times it'll snap back and say, "Yep, I'm achieving what I want to achieve." But there has to be a certain degree of patience this year for this sign, mainly because of that Saturn aspect on the first. Um, Relationship life is a little bit difficult for the sign right now. It's not going to improve really for about another few weeks, but you can start meeting people or start talking with people, but don't get seriously involved just yet. Let's see now. K2 is in the ninth house, so that can indicate um, increased intelligence, increased humor, and that's a good thing. Um, the Other planets in the chart are all fairly decently placed. Moon is in the 11th house, so it's good for financial gains. K2's in the ninth. Unexpected changes of fortune, but the sign can roll with that. He really actually excels when it's being pushed to the limit, but he does need to cultivate patience, at least this month in particular, because there's a strong desire to try to achieve your goals immediately with this placement, and that's not going to work. Saturn will always slow you down. For Capricorn, Capricorn goes from January 15th through February 15th in the chart. Sun and Mars are in the first house. So again, not a good time for relationships. Um, Venus, Rahu, Mercury are in the second house. Good time for accumulating money, although you may be a bit unrealistic. Saturn is in the third house, good for fulfilling goals and ambitions. Jupiter's in the sixth house, so there may be a little bit of overindulgence in this chart, just temporarily. And Moon is in the 10th house, so this person could possibly change career or move in another career direction. So this isn't a bad chart, but again, the only part that's really not that great is for relationship life, and you should probably wait for about, I would say about 3 weeks before I move forward in a relationship. For Aquarius, Aquarius starts around um, February 15th, goes through March 15th, and particular combination, Rahu, Mercury, and Venus. Rahu likes Aquarius as a chart. Mercury and Venus are welcome there. So this actually forms a Raj Yoga for Aquarius. So what does that mean in plain English? Well, this sign will tend to do little wrong. It may even misjudge people or may even accuse people falsely, but it'll somehow get things right. So this Rahu Mercury Venus conjunction is kind of interesting because Rahu's a friend of Aquarius, Mercury is a friend of Aquarius, Venus is a great friend of Aquarius. So this is really a very strong Raj Yoga for people. So it'll give increased status, wealth, and luck to this particular sign. Um, we have Saturn in the second house, so there can be some expenditures for this sign. As we said before, Sun and Mars are in the 12th house. So that makes this month, especially for Aquarius and Pisces, a little bit difficult in terms of finances. And Jupiter sits in the fifth house, so good for financial, like Jupiter's aspecting the first house. So this actually gives good financial leaps for the sign this month. Moon is Lord of the sixth and the 10th. Some obstacles or barriers at work. And Sun and Mars are in the 12th, so this indicates increased expenses in home. For Pisces, last but not least, Pisces, we have Saturn's in the first house, and this isn't necessarily a bad placement. Um, Saturn's in the first house, but it does tend to drain resources from the sign, but they'll be spent on friends or on goals and ambitions you want to pursue. Rahu's in the 12th house. This is again not a bad combination, but Rahu doesn't, it causes what I would call obsessive spending in the 12th house. Um, Jupiter's in the fourth house, so good family life, good relationship life. K2's in the sixth house. Gonna have to watch out for airborne diseases or infections for this month. Seventh house Lord is Mercury, Lord of the seventh house, is in the 12th house. So again, this can indicate some problems with relationship partners or with people that you know as business partners. Moon is in the eighth house, um, good for research, good for financial growth and unexpected financial gains. And finally, we have Sun and Mars giving financial gains to the sign, but Rahu, Venus, and Mercury also drawing out money for what I would call entertainment purposes or educational purposes. So let's go to the special software. Let me see. Let's go to the time astro mapping chart, and let's see where we can expect to see big action around the world. So we're going to close it. Going to close this. And we're going to go here. All right, so that's a lot clearer. Now you'll notice the planets aren't. If you watched last week, you know, Sun, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Rahu were all kind of packed together. They're still rather packed together, but they're not as packed together as they were. So essentially, the moon is near the Hawaiian Islands. It's near the Aleutian Islands and near Alaska. So there can be some changes in government or leadership in those areas. Mars is um, some potential for earthquakes in this particular sign, or I would even say boating accidents in southeastern Alaska. Some governmental problems in um, northwestern Canada. Uh, Venus, Mars, and Rahu. Uh, Venus passes through, I think it's North Vancouver state, but um, I'm not sure about that. But again, some problems with water, some problems with downfall, but also some potential flooding. Mercury sits in directly in Vancouver. It's over into um, it'll affect Washington State, California State, and Oregon State. Rahu is the more interesting, and Mercury will give increased communications between those states over the next few weeks. Now, one of the things I want to draw your special attention to is Rahu over this particular sign and over these particular, or is Rahu, this Rahu line running pretty much through central or through west central Canada, and a Jupiter line running close to Alberta. So I think I wouldn't count um, I wouldn't count uh, out potential for governmental change. That'll take a while before that's voted on. But also, you may see people actually rushing more towards that. Rahu going through California and Washington and Oregon indicates some potential scandals in those states. So, like some um, allegations of misapplication of funding and things like that are quite possible. Are quite possible. I almost said possible. Sorry, are quite possible. No, Spanish is not my native language. Um, let's see. No, the Jupiter line. There's a Saturn line running right through central Canada, where some of the referenda are being held, and going through North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. So, and down into Texas and down into Mexico. So all those regions will have economic constraints put on them or political struggles put on them. And this would extend to Minnesota. So just be prepared for that over the next year or so. I would say over the next month or so, my apologies. Um, we have Jupiter passing close to or through Nicaragua, passing through Mexico, and the Jupiter line is there. It does indicate increased financial growth for those regions, but also readjustment. Nicaragua is going through Nicaragua, um, Venezuela. I'm sorry, not Venezuela, um, Peru and Ecuador. Also cutting across Argentina and down into Argentina itself. So there'll be a lot of governmental activity and a lot of um, actual positive financial activity in those regions. We have one moon line running through down the East Coast, down very close to where I live in New Hampshire and up close to Montreal. So again, these areas will be very much in the public eye this week. So will the Dominican Republic and Haiti. So will Venezuela and let's see now, Peru and I need to stretch. And we have Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury line going over Brazil. And I keep saying this, but I'm seeing a lot of scandals in Brazil, at least from the way the chart set up. So do I have proof of this? No, but at least from what I'm seeing, at least from the astrology, at least it looks like there's a lot of hidden things that are going to come out around February 17th or a little bit after that. Um, Saturn is running through Iceland, close to England, Ireland, and Portugal, and also down through the western part of Africa. Um, Trying to remember the name of that country. Um, I say Mali, but I'm not sure. But um, basically, this entire region is going to go through external control problems and also restrictions uh, from governments or authority figures. It'll affect the economy adversely as well. There's a Jupiter line running through Germany, Italy, and down into Algeria, and down further into Chad and Gabon and those regions of South Africa. So this actually looks fairly good, at least from the chart, from what I'm seeing. Um, so there should be some financial growth for that part of the world, um, all the way down, all the way through Norway, down to Gabon. Okay, for Jupiter, um, Jupiter is going through. I think I've already said this. Jupiter is going through Norway, Germany, Switzerland, Sardinia, and I'm sorry, is that it's like Sardinia? That's Elba and as Corsica. My apologies. Um, Over here you have a moon line broadcasting news about all of Central Africa, including Cairo, which indicate um, increase public visibility for these particular areas. Now we do have the four main lines, the Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, are the five main lines, Rahu, running all the way from Turkey, Saudi Arabia, down through Zambia, and these lines indicate possible aggressive action around this region right here, possible government involvement, possible sue for peace in Iran and Russia, and I'm sorry, sleepy here, so let me get back into focus. Zoom out. All right, so the next significant line we see, so again, some panic along the Iran line and the Pakistan line. So I, again, this could be refugees, this could be anything that's hitting. The next line we see is a Saturn line, which goes through down through Ladakh, Bangladesh, and down through central, west central, east central India. And this can indicate some economic problems for India or some difficulties, economic difficulties. There's a moon line running through China all the way into Vietnam and down into Indonesia. And that particular line will bring increased attention to that part of the world. I'm still thinking you're going to see something, increased activity in China and the Far East. But most of the action in this next eclipse will be around this area. Let's see now. There's a Jupiter line intersecting through Vietnam and into China, so that could indicate good things for the economy in that part of the world. And so a Jupiter line running up through China, and so you should see increased economic activity happening. Oh, by the way, one thing I did miss, there is still a lot of public concern about Iceland. Okay, so that shows up from this Rahu line going through Iceland. So let's get back to the eastern part of the world. And so we've sort of spoken about Jupiter. The next bandwidth, or not, so the next bandwidth I'd like to look at is Japan, Australia, uh, Sunline Governmental Authority coming through in Australia, some aggressive acts happening in Australia and the other regions I mentioned. And there's a sun line going through. That should give them some kind of that should give the map some kind of uh, lift in terms of aggression or competitiveness. This Mars line. But again, or this Mars line, my apologies. But again, this sun line doesn't look too promising because it looks like the federal government will get heavily involved with Japan, with Australia. There's a Venus line running through as well. So that particular Venus line, it lies that particular Venus line, it lies in Australia and a little bit in Guyana and Indonesia. So those economies should be doing fairly well. The Rahu line indicates there is concern over inflation or economic maladjustment in Turkey's world map. So, and the last line I have to look at is we have a Saturn line going through New Zealand. This could indicate a short-term economic downturn in New Zealand. I hope not, for their sake. So we'll see how that plays out. So that's it for me for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And again, I'm going to try to make these tighter and tighter so you won't have to um, search through the video for what you want to find. Again, if you want to contact me for readings or teach or student assignments, 508-525-0001 is the best number to either text or call me on. And also, if you're interested in visiting the store Crystal Expectations, um, you can, New Bedford, Mass. 02744. And Tuesday through Saturday, somebody will be there in the afternoon to greet you. Other days, you can come down there by appointment. So that's, so we can be flexible about that. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you peace and happiness and all the glories of God, um, and the protection that you all deserve. And have a great week. Okay? Bye, everybody. So again, I don't know if I succeeded in shortening the length, but I tried, and by flipping back and forth between charts. So we'll see what I actually did. Okay? Thanks a lot, folks. See you next week. Again, I love you all. Thanks so much for watching. Okay? I really appreciate it.